It's so exciting that you're thinking about tapering. Okay, I do have a couple things I want you to do. Now, I can't remember if you purchased the taper course or not. If you didn't, man, I highly, highly recommend it. I know that spending more money is probably not what you had in mind, but keeping that weight off is so important. And that taper course walks you through exactly what I'm going to kind of describe in here so that you know how to do it step by step. And there's a discount in the other course if you don't already have it, so that you can get some money off, so you're not paying full price for it. But basically, the first thing I want you to do, number one, is take progress pictures. So I want you to do like a full length, you know, as few clothes as you can so that you can actually see what your body looks like before. And I want you to do front, and you can do it like this. Even this is even better. Side, and then back. And I want your arms, you know, I do want you kind of flexing so you can see like your back muscle flexing. So I want you to do that. And then I also want you to take all of your measurements and take them 3 times so that you can feel confident that that is an accurate depiction of where you are now. And I say this because the scale, the actual number on the scale, this is where a lot of the mindset work that we do inside the actual course comes in, because you are going to be slowly increasing your calories. And as you slowly increase your calories, more food, undigested food, stays in your digestive tract, okay? And that weighs something. As you start to eat more carbs, it can fill out your, like, carbs go into your muscle, and for every gram of carb you eat, you bring in water. And so for every gram of carb, you probably bring in 3 to 7 grams of water. Water weighs something, but when you look at your progress pictures, when you look at your measurements, you're not going to be able to see that. And the one that's the most important is like right at your smallest point. For me, my smallest is clear up here. Some people, it's right here. You know, it's where everyone's body's a little bit different, but you just want to have that baseline. So you're like, okay, if I start to gain here, that means I'm actually gaining, versus is it just like in my head? Do I feel fluffy, but I'm really just like scared of that scale number? And I'm not saying that scale number is going to bump up 10 pounds, but usually during this process, it's about 3 pounds. And then you fluctuate 3 pounds up and down from that number during this process, just because you're eating more and that food has to weigh something. And therefore, you have more water weight because you have more food in your system at any given time. So why do we need to increase what you're eating? Well, when you're in a calorie deficit, like when you're losing, here's your normal metabolism, okay? So this is like your TDEE. And there's online calculators for that. We go over this in that course. But your TDEE is about here, and yours may or may not be that exact number. That's why we track and find out where yours is. But as you start to lose weight, it goes down and you're eating less calories so that you can lose weight, right? You have to be in an energy deficit, but also because you're a smaller person and your metabolism's going down a little bit. You're not moving as, like, a lot of different factors are going in. So think of this as a fire, and we have a normal blazing fire. And then as we go down, it just kind of like trickles out and we have a less of a fire. But we need to get your body back up to where it's firing. And it may not go quite up to where it was because you're a smaller person, but we need to know where that maintenance number is, which is why tracking is very important for a short period of time. So as you are, like, I would start this process a little bit before you lower your dose. And then as you lower your dose, I want you to be increasing your calories just like we have in that flow sheet, so that even if you don't completely go off medications, you just end up on a microdose, that you are doing a small dose weekly or a small dose every 2 weeks or something to that nature. You still need to find out what that maintenance is so that you don't overshoot and start to gain. But there's a difference between gaining fat and just gaining weight, which would be water weight and food weight. And so we tweak through that because you're taking weekly pictures and weekly measurements. And then so you do that weekly, then every 2 weeks you can make adjustments if they happen to go in the wrong direction, because sometimes it just feels, or you might get an inaccurate one, or you might be a little bit more bloated. So if the scale starts to go up, we just want to pause, but we don't necessarily want to lower our calories back down immediately. You need to be eating more calories because we need your metabolism to go up, because what's going to happen is if you don't get it back up here, a weekend happens where you eat a little bit more, or you go out to a restaurant, or you go to a wedding, or you go on vacation, and all of a sudden because you're down here, just even going up here is a surplus for you, and you start to gain. And that's the worst thing that we want to happen. And so that's why we have that taper up slowly process to get up to your new maintenance without overshooting. So I hope that makes sense. What I want you to do before you do anything is the pictures and the measurements along with the weight. We also want that, but like, we don't want your like ultra lowest, like living in your smallest body is probably one of the hardest things to do. I found that when I could keep the same body shape, but my actual weight was higher because I had lost fat and gained muscle. I did a lot of recomposition in this process. I lifted heavy weights, and I was able to actually gain muscle because I was eating enough. And then I was like, okay, so I ended up gaining a little bit of weight, but my body composition actually changed and looked better. And I was able to eat more calories because I was a heavier person, but like I wasn't like it wasn't like I was getting to the overweight spot. I was getting to where I was lean and toned, if that makes sense. So take this message, let me know what questions you have, because I may not have explained, this is a very hard concept to pick up on. I attended a 45-minute webinar. The first time I was like, reverse diet, my mind was blown. I had no idea, because all I had ever done is calorie deficit. Okay, I'm eating 1,200 calories. I have to figure out how to stay there. I have to figure out how to eat 1,200 calories. And that's just not the case. And then when you're a medication, when you're weaning it down and down and down, your hunger and that food noise is going to start coming back. So this is where we're also going to be focusing on more high volume foods. So probably when you're in the diet phase, when you're on the medication, you're not very hungry. And so you've probably been eating some calorie, like peanut butter is a great one for this because it's a lot of calories, but you don't have to eat very much. When we get up here and we're maintaining without the medication, peanut butter is not a great choice because it packs on the calories, but you don't get very much volume. So it's not that you can't have the peanut butter, but we also need to pair it with more high volume foods. So what I mean by that is like raspberries. You can eat like a huge bowl of it, and it's like very few calories. Popcorn. A lot of it is fruits and vegetables, but also like grains and things like that to keep you nice and full and volume full, because your hunger and your food noise will start to go up. Now, that hunger reset calibration tool is also in that course. You do not really want to start that until you get to maintenance, because if you're eating less than maintenance, you should be hungry. And that's baffling because we're not hungry when we're on medication. But as we're tapering up and off of medication, you should feel hungry. It's your metabolism working. And so we don't want to say like, oh, work on hunger cues until we get up to maintenance, where we have normal hunger cues when we're hungry, not just because we're still in a calorie deficit. Because from the time you're down here right now until you work all the way up to find your maintenance, all that time you're in a calorie deficit still. And so during that process, it's normal to feel hungry. In fact, you may start to feel more hungry because your metabolism is revving back up. Okay, this went much longer than I expected. I'm so sorry.